Welcome to Delivering Miracles, a podcast to teach women like you tips and strategies on how you can have a safer pregnancy so you can bring home a healthy baby. I'm your host and your high-risk pregnancy expert, Parijat Deshpande. I can't wait to chat with you. We talk a lot on this podcast about triggers, right? A lot of triggers when you're going through a high-risk pregnancy, when you're going through fertility treatment, when you have a baby in the NICU, when you are healing after it's all over. And those triggers can be different for everybody. I think I've shared on here that when I was pregnant and I was on bed rest, one of my biggest triggers was going on Facebook and seeing all these beautiful maternity photo shoots, and it would break my heart because I knew that I would never be able to do that because I couldn't stand long enough to actually take a picture. I barely got those weekly bump pictures, and actually I was able to stand for like 30 seconds before I had to go lie down again. But another huge trigger for me, huge. And it's, I'll be really honest, it still sticks with me today. It's still one that stings. Is seeing pictures of families, mom, dad, or mom and mom, or whatever. Mom's in the hospital bed, in the hospital gown, looking exhausted, but so elated. Her partner is crouching over her, behind her. You can tell a wonderful nurse has captured this amazing moment of this freshly born little baby on her chest, in her arms. Everyone is thrilled and elated beyond belief. It's like minutes after the birth. And you can feel how much their life has just changed because they now have a brand new baby in their life. That picture, that moment, seeing that really breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart because we never got that. We never got that. I didn't see my son when he was born because as soon as he was born, they took him and they ran. Literally, the neonatologist wrapped him in a blanket and bolted to the NICU because he came so fast they weren't ready for him. And obviously he was a 24-weeker, so he was not breathing and he needed to be resuscitated. Because I had been upside down for 15 days in the Trendelenburg position, it took me 3 hours to be able to go from lying down to sitting upright without wanting to faint. So it took me about 3 hours to see him for the first time. And it took me 19 days to hold him for the first time. And that was when we got our first family picture. And never in a million years would I had ever dreamt of that first family picture, including a ventilator and heart monitors and my baby being so small that he could fit in the palm of my hand. And I see those pictures and it breaks my heart because we didn't get that. And I know that I'm not the only one who doesn't get that moment. When we were in the NICU, there was another little girl who was born. She was just a little older than him, I think born like 27, 28 weeks. And her mom was so sick that I think it was like 2-3 days before she got to see her. And that is a story that happens and is a story that a lot of women experience. It's an experience that a lot of women have of they don't get that picture perfect delivery, post-delivery, wonderful bonding experience. And because we don't talk about it enough, it can make you feel really alone. Like, hey, am I the only one that missed out on this? Am I the only one that's sad about this? So when I met today's guest and she shared a little bit about what she went through, I knew I had to have her on because I know that if you are going through this, if you have been through this, if you know exactly what I'm talking about, that you did not get that post-delivery or even just the delivery itself, but you just didn't get that experience because something or the other went wrong for you, for baby, for both of you, you're going to want to hear this story because it is going to change the way that you remember what you've been through. And I know it's going to be really healing for you. So I'm super, super excited to have Jillian on the Delivering Miracles episode today. Jillian is a mother of 3 who lives in upstate New York. And she blogs at doingawaywithperfect.com, where she helps moms stop comparing and love their imperfect self. My goodness, I need some of that. Welcome, Jillian. I'm so, so glad that you're here.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, I am so glad that you're here too. And I have so many questions for you. And first of all, I just want to say thank you again for being open to sharing your story, because I know it's one that so many of us can really relate to. Even if the details are a little different, it's a sentiment that a lot of us can relate to. So I'd love to know, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your family before we jump into what happened?
Sure. Like you said, I have 3 kids. They are 16, 11, and 6, 2 girls and a boy. And they're just everything to me. Everything I do is for them.
You must be very busy with 3 kids.
I am, yes. There's always something going on.
I bet. Does a 16-year-old help drive around the 2 little ones?
She doesn't have her license yet, but she helps take care of them and watches them for us. She's really responsible.
Oh, that's lovely. That's so great. And then you blog about moms just kind of helping them not compare. And gosh, I mean, that's such a huge thing in our mom world, isn't it? Like, we're always comparing, we're always judging ourselves against other people.
Yes, you see all those moms on Pinterest and Instagram seem to have it all together, but you're over here with a mess and kids yelling and screaming, and you're just thinking, what am I doing wrong?
Yes, exactly. And that is the whole point of this episode and this podcast is you're not doing anything wrong. You're doing it your way, and that is the best way to do it, even if it feels crazy making sometimes.
Exactly. Those moms aren't posting those pictures on social media, but I'm sure they have those moments.
That is true. That is very true. So, you shared something so amazing and so heartbreaking about your experience delivering your son. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yes, I went into labor at 36 weeks, so I was pretty far along, but and they decided to deliver because I was going to have a repeat C-section because I had a C-section with my middle daughter. So they decided to go ahead and do it because it was a Friday, and they figured I might go into labor over the weekend, and they didn't want to wait to get called in on a weekend, I think.
Wow. That's something that we hear a lot around C-sections. Is it's become like a convenience for a lot of doctors and hospitals of, okay, let's just do it now because it's easier to schedule on a Friday than it is to call somebody in on a Sunday afternoon.
Yes.
That's awful. That's awful.
Yeah, but, so I went in to have my C-section, and I remember the nurse announcing the time he was born, but there was no noise, nothing. And like you said, your story I relate to so much. All of a sudden, everybody was around him, and he was just taken out of the room, and I never got to see him. And they came over and told us that he was having trouble breathing on his own, and they had to take him to the NICU. And they asked my husband to go, and he went, and I was left all alone. Delivery, or why they sewed me back up and got me all set. The first time I saw him was a picture on my husband's phone.
Yeah.
Taken. Yep. He brought back to me.
I can relate to that. That's the first time I saw my son too. It's surreal, right? Like that's the first time you're meeting your child is on a picture, in a picture.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. And I did get to go, and they wheeled me in on the bed to see him in there.
Oh, good.
But like he was hooked up to so many tubes and everything. I couldn't really see. What happened was they said that he had actually stopped developing while I was pregnant, which is probably why I went into early labor. So his lungs weren't developed like they should be for a 36-week-old baby.
Oh, wow. Did they say when he stopped developing?
I think it was around the 33-week mark.
Oh, wow. Which, I mean, between 33 and 36 weeks is still a huge difference in development for babies.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And come to find out later, we found out I had a genetic disorder that actually causes like miscarriages and stillborns with babies. So it's probably a good thing I went into early labor.
Yeah.
Since it stopped developing.
Wow. What was that like to find that out after the fact?
It was, I don't know, it was hard. I thought they tested for everything. When you first got pregnant, you have a whole bunch of blood tests. So I thought they tested for like all genetic disorders and everything. So I was kind of shocked to find out they didn't test for this.
Right. Yeah. What made them want to test for it afterwards?
They found out I had a blood clot in my leg. My leg turned purple, and it had traveled up to my lungs. So, yeah.
That is so scary. So this is after your delivery? Were you still in the hospital when you had the blood clot?
No, they figured I had the blood clot while I was pregnant, but I thought it was just like a pregnancy symptom. Like I didn't think much of it until after I got home from the hospital, and that's when I was having trouble walking.
Okay, wow. So you delivered your son at 36 weeks. Mm-hmm. Yes. They realized actually he kind of stopped developing 3 weeks before that. Mm-hmm. So he was in the NICU for how long?
For a month.
For about a month, which is a long time for a 36-weeker. Usually 36-weekers are in and out in like a day, if that, day or two. So that's a long time, much longer than you were expecting, I imagine.
Yes. When I was going in to have the C-section, the doctor, he's just like, oh, he's a little young, so he might be in the NICU for a day or two. Don't worry about it. Sometimes they don't even go. Like, he just, like, so nonchalant about it.
Right. And then you find out, okay, he's in the NICU. He's not breathing great. He actually stopped developing 3 weeks earlier, and he's going to be there for a while.
Yes.
And then you go home and you find out there's a blood clot in your leg that's traveled to your lung.
Yes. So I end up in the hospital.
Oh my gosh. So you went back to the hospital. Mm-hmm. And then like what happened for you?
They started me on some blood thinners, and I was only in the hospital the first time 3 days. They started me on blood thinners, and then I went to see him, and I remember the day I started taking the blood thinners, they're like, oh, guess what? You can start breastfeeding him. And I'm like, I can't. I'm on medication now. And I was so heartbroken because I really wanted to do that and bond with him. Yeah. And I couldn't do that because of my medication now.
Right. So, I mean, this is just a few days out after delivery, mm-hmm. and you've had so many experiences of loss because you didn't get to hold him or see him when he was born. You don't get to take him home with you when you go home, and now you can't even breastfeed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was that like for you? I imagine that must have been so heartbreaking.
Yes, it was, not to have, like you said in the beginning, not to have that moment where I see those moms with their baby right after delivery. And it's hard not to have those pictures with him.
Yeah.
And then in the NICU, older kids aren't allowed in. You have to be over 18. And my husband didn't have any paternity leave. So during the day, I was with my girls. And so I really couldn't go see him a lot because I had to wait till my husband got home. So that was really hard because trying to manage trying to see him and have the girls at home. A lot of guilt that I wasn't spending time with this kid and I couldn't be at the NICU. And
yeah, this brand new baby, and you're not able to spend all the time that you expect to spend with a brand new baby. Mm-hmm. You kind of expect to be attached to this baby, and then everyone around you is just kind of going to do their thing. Mm-hmm. And your main priority is going to be this brand new baby, and you can't do that.
No, I just felt we weren't bonding. Like the nurses were taking care of him. I felt I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And you kind of feel like, am I really the mom here?
Yes.
Or am I kind of a proxy, kind of this person that like, who am I to this little person?
Yes. I felt like he wouldn't know who I was. Like,
yeah.
We missed that bonding time you're supposed to have right at the very beginning.
Yes. 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 And I don't know for you if this happened, but for me, once he was born, and really kind of when I got my head out of the sand and I could pay attention to the world again, I'd read about like, oh, it's so important to get skin to skin right away. And it's so important for this and that, which I knew in my brain he couldn't do. But the mom side of me was just like, oh my gosh, I failed him in one more way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to hold him for 4 days. And I just thought he has like no human contact really, because holding him was too much stimulation, even for the nurses. So
yes. Yes. And it's such a mind shift on how to parent and care for a little baby. So I know for my son, who was a 24-weeker, at that time, your skin's not even formed yet. And so, you have this feeling of, okay, when a baby cries or is uncomfortable, you just stroke them to make them feel better, which for most babies works. But when you don't have fully formed skin, that's actually extremely painful. And so we couldn't do that for him. And it's little things like that. Like you can't pick him up just when he, I imagine your son started crying pretty soon after he was stabilized, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But you can't just pick him up when you feel like it, because he can't handle that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. And the first time I did get to hold him, it was so many wires and machines. I just felt awkward. Like,
yeah. Yes, exactly. And did you have like a bunch of nurses come and having to like figure out the wires?
Yes.
And align everything properly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. What was that moment like when you held him for the first time when he was 4 days old?
I was happy I got to hold him because I didn't think I was going to get to that day. Thought it would still be a few more days. Mm-hmm. So I was really excited I got to hold him, but I just felt like he was so fragile. I couldn't like really enjoy the moment because I was afraid I was going to hurt him or do something.
Yeah. Right? Or like pull off a lead or like something.
Like disconnect some tube.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. Do you have that memory in your brain, or can you remember like in your body just what it felt like to hold him?
It's mostly in my brain. I don't really remember like exactly what I was feeling. I just remember thinking I didn't know if I could really hold him because I was going to disconnect something.
Yeah. Which really strikes me too, because you're a third-time mom at that point. And so you've kind of gone through this with two. And the impression that we have is, okay, well, you've done this twice, so now you're a pro. But all of a sudden you're thrown into like newbie status again, because now it's a whole other situation and all these new things and babies having a hard time. And it's like you don't really know. Is that an accurate way to describe it? I just felt I knew nothing about this part of having a newborn. Like you take the baby home and you just feed them and let them sleep and burp them, but this was all new territory for me. Yeah, you're starting from scratch and learning it all over.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. What was the most difficult part of this experience of you having a postpartum complication and baby needing so much time in the NICU? Like, what stands out to you as being the most challenging?
It was actually after he came home. He was home 2 days, and I was really excited that he was home, and he was actually mine,
Yeah.
And that's when my clot got worse, and I ended up in the ICU for 2 weeks. So I finally gotten him home, and then I was in the hospital, and kids aren't allowed in the ICU.
Right.
So
right.
I, again, was not allowed to see him.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's one hit after another.
Yes.
How did you handle this without like completely losing your mind?
I did have a breakdown in the ICU. Yeah. I ended up crying to a nurse, and she actually got special permission to let them come in. They got to come in for half an hour. I got to see in 2 weeks. I got to see him for half an hour. But because I just had a breakdown, I was just crying. I'm like, I just had a baby. He's home and I can't see him.
Oh my gosh. And not just had a baby. I've just been through a month in the NICU with him. And now he's finally home. And now I can't see him again.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That nurse, how amazing of her to do that.
I know. That was so nice of her. I think she just felt so bad because I just lost it when the doctor said I couldn't go home. He had just told me I'd be in for a few more days and I lost it.
I think anyone would have. Anyone would have. I mean, it's like this, I get this feeling of like it's a train that just won't go. Like you just want to be a family together and then it's just one thing after another that's just keeping you from living the life that you wanted with this little boy. Yes,
exactly. I thought I would never get to that moment where we could be a family and all be home together.
Right. And that's something I think a lot of people take for granted is if you don't know this side of it, then it's, well, yeah, I'm going to get pregnant and then I'm going to have the baby and then we're going to be a family together. And that's just the expectation, which is great that it happens like that for so many people. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't happen like that for everybody. And there's actually a lot of people who have so many challenges to just live that life of a family together. And for those of you that are listening, if that feels like your life, whether it's postpartum complications you're dealing with or high-risk pregnancy or infertility or whatever it is, you are not alone. There are so many of us that understand what it's like to live a life where you want to be a family and it just feels like there are constant hurdles that are keeping you from being there. And you are not alone if you're going through that. If you think back to what you've been through, now that it's been 6 years, you said, right?
Yes.
What do you wish you had known now that you're on the other side of it and so far out?
Well, obviously that I had the genetic disorder, that would have been nice to know.
Yeah, really.
Yes. But just that, yes, it's hard when you're there and you're in that moment, but the NICU was the best place for him to be. He got the care he needed so he could come home to me. And even though looking back, each day was so long because I just wanted to take him home. But now looking back, it was like so short. Like, I don't know. It's hard when you're in the moment.
Yeah. No, you're so right. I remember a nurse telling me that too, that my son was in the NICU. At that time, we didn't know how long it was going to be. He ended up being in there for 109 days. But she kept saying that in the grand scheme of things in his entire life, 109 days is not going to be very much. It's going to be just a blip. But when you're in it, it feels like that's all it is and that's all that defines you and it's never going to be over. So I'm so glad that you said that because it gives a little bit of perspective for those of our listeners who are in it right now, that once you're a year or 2 years, 6 years out, which I know you might not be able to see yet, you will be there and it does feel like it wasn't as long as it felt as you were going through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Now when I say he was only in the NICU a month, back then it was like such a long month.
Yes. Oh, yes. How did all of this impact your transition to being a mom to him and being a mom to your girls that were at home the whole time? I'm way more overprotective of him. I do know that. My husband has told me that a lot. I don't know. I always have this feeling something's going to happen. Like I have to protect him more because he had a rough start. I don't know if that makes sense, but it totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I feel the girls, they're stronger. They can handle themselves, but just, I need to protect him, or I don't know, this fear of almost losing him, like I'm going to do it again, almost lose him, or it's like, I don't know, I'm very overprotective.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. I think a lot of our listeners can really relate to that. That actually just happened to me recently. We were by a lake, and my son's not a very adventurous kid. He's quite chill and doesn't, physically at least doesn't take a lot of risks. So he's never been one of those kids that I find like at the top of a bookshelf or something. But we were just by the lake, and he was throwing rocks in the lake, and there was a little like slope going into the lake, and he stepped a little too quickly down it, and he almost fell face front into the lake. Now, mind you, the lake was like 2 inches deep, but I freaked out, and my heart completely stopped when I saw him almost fall down. So I can really completely relate, because it's not just a fear that all moms have, it's that you've lived that fear watching him try to survive. And so that's a memory. It's not just a fear for you. So it totally makes sense.
Yes.
Do you feel like it's impacted how you parent your daughters?
A little bit. I appreciate life a little bit more after almost losing him, and then almost losing me, because that clock could have killed me. And so, I've been letting go of a few things more, just to spend more time with them, because, life is precious. It can be gone in an instant. So, I definitely try to live more in the moment since this has happened.
I love that. And what a wonderful thing to model for all three of your children, too, of how to appreciate life and live in the moment. Have you told him about how his life began?
Yes, he's seen pictures, and I have told him, but I think he's still so young, and it's just kind of like somebody else. He doesn't really get that it was him.
Right.
But he does know. I do tell him the story.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. And kind of looking back, how has this changed you as a person, outside of just motherhood, but just as you as a person? Is there anything that's shifted because of everything you've been through and seeing what your son went through?
That's actually what my blog is about. Just I used to be so controlling of everything and want everything to be perfect, and I've kind of been letting it go and just trying to enjoy life more and be more in the moment, and not so obsessed with every little detail of everything.
Do you have a couple examples of things that you used to really like to control that you've kind of let go of now?
My house, cleaning my house, it had to be spotless all the time. And especially with my kids, they had to look perfect and dress perfectly, and now I'm just kind of like, put on some clothes so we can get out the door.
As long as you're wearing something.
Just not having to be in control of every situation.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. I used to be the same way. It's very, like, I want things to be the way I imagine them, and I want them to be, I guess, perfect, or as close to perfect as possible. And then you go through something like this, and you're just like, I just want him to live. I'll do whatever, like none of it matters anymore, because you see the edge of that cliff and you go, wow, that's perspective right there, that none of this actually matters.
Definitely.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, it's such a powerful story that you've shared, and what you've been through is so incredible. I'm so grateful that you both are okay and here and thriving and have this beautiful life together.
Thank you.
And for those of you that are listening, please know that you're not alone. You know, the details of your journey to bringing your miracle home may be different than mine or Jillian's. But if you're feeling like it's just one hit after another, over and over and over, and you're feeling like, how am I ever going to get through this? And how is this fair? And what is going on? And why can't I just be home with my baby? You are not alone. The journey to growing your family is not picture perfect for everybody. For a lot of us, we don't get that picture perfect moment. And it doesn't take away from who you are as a mother. It doesn't take away from who you are as a woman. But it's hard, and you're not alone in it. Jillian, what are your final words of hope for women who are going through a really difficult time right now, or are home and are trying to heal after a traumatic experience like what you had?
Give yourself some time. Just be in the moment and be in that day. I know it's hard, but don't try to think about the future. Just be in that moment and doing what you need to do in that moment.
I love it. It's so true. It's so true. And it's a great reminder for all of us that this is the moment that we have, and that's it. Nothing else matters. You will figure it out as time goes on. But right now is what you have. Thank you so much for sharing that. Where can people find you if they want to know more about your story or want some inspiration?
I blog over at doingaway.with perfect.com. Also on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Doing Away with Perfect.
Doingaway.with perfect.com. That's amazing. So incredible. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm just so happy for you and your family that everything turned out okay and you guys are all healthy and thriving and enjoying life as a family.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on.
Yes, of course. Of course. Gosh, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to hear stories like this where you can feel the love, you can feel the desire to bring this baby home. And life just keeps throwing hurdle after hurdle your way. And I mean, I was speechless to hear when she was saying that it wasn't just the delivery, it was after the delivery. Baby's sick, then she's having health problems, and it's just like one thing after another, and it's exhausting. At some point, you might just be like, really? Really, life? Really, universe? I can't do this anymore. I can't. I don't have it in me to keep fighting. And maybe your fight's going on for even longer, months, maybe years. And I want you to know that you are not alone. I know how lonely it feels. I know it feels like there's no one else around you that gets it. That you're the only one that's having to struggle this way. And then you get on Facebook and you see all those picture perfect moments of everybody just so happy with their big, chubby, pink, healthy babies. And you're like, why not me? I know it's hard to see that. I know it's hard to see people living the life that you want. I know it's hard when you just want this one thing, a happy, healthy baby to bring home. And it just feels so far away, and it feels like it's never going to happen for you. It's exhausting, and it's so soul-crushing some days when it feels like that's not going to happen, or that it feels so far away. Allow yourself to feel it. And like Jillian said, be in the moment, because that's all you've got. This moment right now, this is what you have. And you take it slow. But know that you are not alone. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love it if you can head over to iTunes and leave a review so we can get more amazing guests like Jillian to come on and share their stories and show you that there are more women out there who are not having this perfect, easy, simple journey to bringing babies home, and that you're not alone going through it. And if you have been through a high-risk pregnancy or a preterm birth or experienced some kind of birth trauma and you're looking to heal so you can fully be present and fully enjoy being a mom to your little miracle, I invite you to join my postpartum healing course. Just head over to parijatdeshpande.com/postpartum so you can learn a little bit more about it. Also, I'd love to stay in touch. So follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Parijat Desh. That's PARIJATDESH. You're really not alone in this, no matter how lonely you feel. There are so many of us that live a life of such beauty and such incredible moments who had really, really rough starts to our story. And so if you're in the rough parts, know that you can still live your life, your dream life. Maybe it'll look a little different than you would imagine, and the journey to get there may be a little different than you had ever hoped for. But as you're going down that path, know that you are not alone. There are so many of us walking that path with you. Take it one day, one step at a time. You can do this.